The Wedding Gift. Written by Monika Wawrzyniak. Performed by Noni Ali, Slade Hovick, Ali Slone, Chris Harris-Beechey, Ashley Crossman, and Ken Fountain. Chapter 1. Paulina. A perfect wedding? Not in my case. It was nowhere near as I imagined it to be. And all that because of a stupid gift we got. Harrison and I were never big on weddings. Especially Harrison, who didn't care about having one at all. For all I knew, he could have got married anywhere, be it a barn or a video call. We weren't sure whether throwing a party was a good idea, but in the end, we decided to go for it. So one day we wouldn't regret not having one at all. I mostly took it upon myself to plan everything, starting with the most important thing, like the venue, then the food, music, to the not-so-important ones, like flowers, renting a car, or booking classes for our first dance. I knew there'd always be a nitpicking aunt or a fussy friend with their unsolicited remarks on the food quality, poor music choice, or comments like, "Of all the dresses she could have picked, she chose that one?" Yes, I did actually overhear it at my wedding reception. It didn't bother me, though. I knew that most guests, the sane ones, wouldn't be complaining and would rather focus on having fun and celebrating our special day instead. It was never my dream to have a princess-like wedding with a venue the size of a castle, 300 people dancing at my reception, and acrobats hanging from the ceiling. I wanted to keep it small and simple. That's why we only invited our closest friends and family. Around 90 people in total. My parents paid for the wedding, even though we assured them we were perfectly fine with waiting an additional year or two to save up enough money and cover all the expenses ourselves. They were very persuasive, and we felt it would be rude to say no. Besides, free money is free money. My dad was the one who insisted on helping us out the most. I guess it's because first, I'm an only child, and second, he owns a pretty successful software house. So I believe money is rarely the issue for him. When I was a child, I never felt we were poor. But we also hardly ever talked about money, and so I have no idea how wealthy he actually is. Children don't care how much money their parents make, as long as they are fed, get new clothes once in a while, and receive birthday gifts once a year. Both my parents work in tech, and so I decided to follow in their footsteps. I ended up studying software engineering, where I met Jack and Hannah, the two people I couldn't imagine not having at my wedding party. When I met Jack at the university, he was a very shy guy, rarely speaking, except when he was solving an equation half the class had no idea where to even begin. Hannah was different. Hannah was cheating a lot on her exams. Once she realized Jack was a smart one, she made sure to sit beside him in every exam. But she was also very joyful and funny. Hannah and I clicked instantly, and were both intrigued to get to know the nerdy-looking yet unconventionally attractive guy a little more. He couldn't say no to us, two objectively attractive blonde girls who wanted to talk about math and computers with him, please. And also, we happened to be 2 out of 5 female students in our year, among nearly 200 male wannabe programmers and future potential startup founders. When we go on a group vacation, Jack is the kind of person who agrees to hiking in the mountains at 6 in the morning, then visiting an old castle in the afternoon, and driving 50 kilometers to a winery for a wine tasting tour in the evening, all to make each and every person happy and not cause any kind of tension or drama. He rarely comes up with his own ideas, though. He's very adaptable, as he puts it. Jack has been working at my dad's company for a little over 2 years. That's also where he met his fiancée. I always joke that if it wasn't for me, Jack wouldn't have met the love of his life, or anyone really. He's not so closed off anymore, but he would not dare to come talk to her if I hadn't set them up on a blind date. It's fascinating how even the smallest decision can completely change the course of someone's life. They would have never gotten to know each other had I chosen to study at a different university. The same way Harrison and I might have never met at the karaoke night at a local bar if my friend Hannah hadn't literally forced me out of my house that night. I don't see Hannah as often as I used to when we were students. We used to share the same room. But she's been living in Ireland for a few months now, to be closer to a guy she claims she's head over heels in love with. All I know is that the morning after our wedding, Hannah hopped on a plane to Dublin, and I haven't heard from her since. My wedding didn't have to be perfect. All that mattered was gathering the people I care about in one place, simply enjoying each other's company, and celebrating our special day. However, things started to get very intense well before midnight, all because of this one particular wedding gift we received. A lottery ticket worth 1 million euros.
Chapter 2. Harrison. I didn't really know what Paulina was planning for the wedding. I didn't have to. My wife is great at that sort of stuff. I didn't even know that a woman with a big-ass harp was going to play while we were walking down the aisle, until she actually walked up to me in the backyard holding a huge black fabric bag and asked me where she could unpack. I joked that dead bodies should preferably be disposed of outside the property. For example, in the woods, just right across the fence. She didn't laugh. Her lips didn't even twitch. I found it quite funny, as did a couple of my friends. Paulina handled pretty much every aspect of our wedding. My job was to not forget to show up. I fulfilled that promise 100%, although I must admit that pretending to disappear instead of waiting at the altar did cross my mind. And then, ta-da! I'm here. Relax, everybody. I'm just messing with you. The disorientation on Paulina's face would have been priceless. But like I said, I didn't do it. And so she was pretty chill throughout the entire ceremony. Well, later in the evening, she wasn't so chill anymore. She was livid. At least that's what I heard. Usually when I receive a wedding invitation, I think twice about whether to accept. I don't like weddings. Every one of them seems to be the same. Eat, drink, dance, repeat. It goes on and on until you feel sick and either get lucky enough to find your own bed and manage to fall asleep when the world finally stops spinning, or have kind enough friends to show you where your bed is, or you might as well end up falling asleep on the bathroom floor, or out in the bushes, so that the next day both your head and back hurt like hell. And that's still not even your biggest problem. But our wedding was actually fun. At least the first half of it was. My wife did a pretty good job with the reception. But to me, the bachelor party was the best part of having a wedding. My friends took me to Amsterdam, and they really went above and fucking beyond. We definitely had fun. I couldn't have asked for more. They rented a very nice-looking apartment with a rooftop access overlooking the city. We didn't do anything too crazy, though. It wasn't like in the movies, where the guys take drugs of unknown origin, lose the groom, have no memory of the previous night, and wake up to find a huge live tiger in their apartment the next day. We mostly wandered around the city center, went to a casino, and then spent the rest of the night at a nightclub. Still, it was definitely one of those trips I'll never forget. Another thing I'll never forget was getting my ass kicked at my wedding by a fucking Conor McGregor.
Chapter 3. Hannah. I was never a marriage type of person. If you love someone, you don't have to sign any contracts or throw a big party. Still, I was thrilled to celebrate my friend's happy day. I have nothing against people getting married. Everyone's free to do what works for them. I respected their decision and wanted to be there for them. I myself just don't like being constrained to doing what everyone else is doing just for the sake of fitting in. Thankfully, Conor and I see eye to eye on that. The wedding was Conor's second time in Poland. When he came here for the first time, I took him to a Polish restaurant to try pierogi, because for some mysterious reason, tourists are obsessed with them. I'm more of a pad thai and everything with rice in it type of person. In the evening, Paulina, Harrison, Jack, and his fiancée Caroline joined in for a glass of craft beer. It didn't end with just one beer, obviously. I wanted my friends to get to know the guy I was dating, and there was no better way than to have a group sit, drink a little, and remove the invisible boundaries that make us treat someone like a stranger. Conor said he had a great time and was very fond of my friends. I don't think I had seen Harrison talking to Conor much, though. Paulina's husband was rather reserved that night. It definitely wasn't because of the language barrier. Harrison is pretty much fluent in English, as he was actually born in the UK. His mom moved there with her husband a couple of years before he was born. Things got a little more complicated when they got divorced. Then she found a British guy with whom she actually had Harrison. They lived in Birmingham until Harrison was 8 or 10. Then the father also left them, so she took Harrison and moved back to Poland to her parents. And so he's been living here ever since. As for me, I always knew Poland wouldn't be the only country I'd live in. I intend to be traveling for as long as I can. I consider myself a citizen of the world and promised myself never to settle for more than a few years. I've visited several countries so far, and right now my heart is in Ireland, where I've been living with Conor for 6 months. We met at my 2-month intensive English language course. All students met with the teachers for drinks after class as part of what we called the Culture Exchange Program. That's how I met Conor. He's my English teacher's good friend. In fact, Conor is also an English teacher. Right after Paulina's bachelorette party in Berlin, I hopped on a plane and 5 hours later, I landed at Fuerteventura Airport, where I waited another hour for my boyfriend to fly in from Dublin. We spent an unforgettable week there and considered staying a few more days, but then I received an unexpected email from my work that forced us to change our plans. As it turns out, according to the company's rules, I could work remotely, but only from Poland. Notifying my boss of the relocation didn't cross my mind. In my mind, it didn't change anything as long as I could put in the effort and completed all my tasks in time. Once my boss discovered I no longer lived in Poland, he fired me, just like that. Life in Dublin isn't cheap, and my savings were melting away like a 99 in July. I desperately needed a job, but so far I failed at 6 interviews in 2 weeks, 3 of them being at Fang. I knew I most probably wouldn't get hired in any of these companies, but I wanted to at least try, and I was also tempted by the huge salary and equity bonuses. At Paulina's wedding, I may have spent an hour or two sending out my resume to several companies when I didn't feel like dancing or talking to anyone, but I would never steal anyone's money, especially when it's my friend's wedding gift. What kind of person would do that? I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about the things I would do if I had that kind of money transferred into my bank account. With money like that, I could travel the world for years or buy a cozy apartment by the beach. When the groom was going around telling the wedding guests how much money he had just won, it was obvious that right then, everyone pictured themselves holding the winning lottery ticket. They all saw themselves being handed a silver metal case full of cash and then tossing the banknotes like lunatics. Not that that's actually what happens when you win, but people can get very creative. Not long after that, Harrison found out that the lottery ticket was gone. If I were him, I would have come talk to Paulina and the other guests to see if anyone had seen or knew anything. But instead, his drunk train of thought led him straight to my boyfriend. He jumped on Conor, even though my boyfriend gave him no reason to suspect him. Literally anyone could have stolen that stupid ticket, including the staff. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw them throwing punches at each other like animals. I suppose Harrison found Conor the most suspicious because he didn't know him as well as the other guests, and Conor was the only foreigner at the wedding. None of our friends would say Harrison is prejudiced, but who knows? Maybe it's his father's fault he turned out like that. Harrison was lucky some guys broke up the fight and made him go outside before he got seriously hurt. When I saw blood on Conor's head, my first instinct was to scratch Harrison's eyes out. But I just stood there, shocked. How could someone be so aggressive? And over what? Money? Money he didn't even really see or have, for that matter? Money he wasn't even really sure had been stolen, let alone by Conor. Harrison had no right to act like a mindless chimpanzee, jumping at the first person who seemed suspicious to him. When Paulina saw Conor's face covered in blood, she quickly rushed to find the first aid kit. And then we went to the bathroom to dress his wounds. He washed the blood off his hair and then ended up with half of his head bandaged. Never in a million years would I have imagined seeing my boyfriend at a wedding with blood dripping down his head. We did the best we could. Conor assured Paulina he was fine and that she had better go and check up on her husband, since Conor, not that he bragged, there was nothing to brag about, but as he said it, he made sure Harrison felt it too. Paulina was about to call an ambulance, but Conor insisted that he didn't need one, that it wasn't as bad as it looked. I think he was just putting on a tough guy act. I asked my boyfriend whether he unintentionally did or said anything that might have sent Harrison into a frenzy, but he simply glanced at Paulina, then at me, and said that the whole evening he had been nothing but polite to everyone and that he knew nothing about their stupid lottery ticket. Then he thanked Paulina for the help and headed upstairs to our hotel room to get some rest. After Paulina finally managed to check in on her wasted and bruised husband, he ended up with a black eye and a swollen cheek like he had just had a Botox injection. She instructed 2 of his friends to drag Harrison upstairs to the hotel room and make sure he didn't hurt himself or anyone else. He slept like a baby the rest of the night. After everything that happened, Paulina got herself together, joined the rest of the guests, and pretended to have a good time. She didn't want to disappoint the guests or cancel the whole party she had put so much effort into preparing. For the groom, however, the party was definitely over. When I saw Paulina crying in the bathroom once, I wanted to talk to her and comfort her. After all, it was her first and most probably the only wedding day in her life, and she didn't deserve such embarrassment. I wasn't sure how the rest of the night was going to work out, whether the guests would keep partying and pretending that nothing had happened, or walk around gossiping so the party would eventually resemble a funeral more than a wedding. I was curious if Paulina had ever witnessed Harrison behaving like that. I myself didn't recall him ever being so aggressive. At least not when I was around. Paulina said she had never seen him hurt anyone like that. When I suggested that perhaps Harrison should seek help, she lashed out at me for being too nosy, even though I considered myself to be one of her few true friends. She started to defend Harrison, saying that her husband had never had a drinking or any other kind of problem, and that I should mind my own business. I know she didn't mean it. She was overwhelmed. But then it really hurt when she implied that I should watch my own boyfriend more closely because perhaps I didn't know Conor as well as she knew Harrison, and that maybe I should seriously rethink whether moving in with a guy I just met was the right choice. I've spent enough time with Conor to know that he wasn't the kind of person who would go around beating people for no reason, nor was he overly obsessed with money. Although having 7 figures in his bank account would definitely make his life easier, for him, it wasn't his ultimate goal. Having a clean conscience was. Or so I thought.
Chapter 4. Paulina. Harrison has a gambling problem. I had never told anyone, although people who spent a lot of time with him might have already figured that out. My mother once told me that she had a soft spot for dating difficult men who required a firm hand until she met my father, who seemed to be on top of everything since day one. I took after her in that way, except that I decided to actually marry a difficult man. Before Harrison took off for Amsterdam, I made him leave his credit cards at home and take only 1 debit card with a reasonable balance. When he came back, I didn't pry into the details of his trip, just like he didn't ask about my trip. He assured me that he didn't lose any money to gambling. And that was all I needed to know. I, too, have nothing to hide. Nothing happened at my bachelorette party that I could be ashamed of. Together with Harrison, we came to the conclusion that none of that mattered because, in a way, we were starting from scratch. We were starting with a clean slate and promised each other that moving forward, we would try our best to maintain a happy and healthy relationship. Being married also meant a joint account, which meant no more undocumented money withdrawals. Everything would be under control. I'm sure it's going to benefit both of us. With mild supervision, Harrison's addiction is going to be cured over time, and I'll finally stop losing sleep over it. My husband's addiction started about 3 years ago, when he accepted a job offer that simply overwhelmed him and made him want to take on hobbies that, as he said, would help him take his mind off work. That included watching and betting on various sports with 2 of his friends. They used to put their money on anything and everything, including soccer, horseback riding, boxing, as well as other sports whose names I can't even remember. Then Harrison got into playing poker. He was trying virtually anything that could potentially make him money fast, so he could quit his day job. It started off innocently, but now I'm not even sure how much of his salary is spent on these so-called hobbies. I promised myself that I wouldn't complain and keep him under surveillance as long as he had enough money to pay his half of the bills, grocery, and rent. But him saying I do has led to his money becoming our money, and I'll make sure he doesn't forget it. As a wife, I took it upon myself to help him. Some might say it's too late, but I believe otherwise. People grow and learn throughout their lives. We don't commit to a relationship and feel superior about ourselves whenever our partner is struggling. It's not a competition. About his anger issues, first off, it was only this one time. And second, well, there is no reasonable justification for his actions. Yes, it was his wedding. Yes, he was drunk. And yes, he lost 1 million euros. But that doesn't mean that he could have done whatever he wanted. We are not animals ruled by our instincts. His brain didn't seem to be working properly that day. Neither did Conor's. Even though he wasn't the first to attack, he shouldn't have acted out like that. If you saw my husband's puffy face, you would know what I mean. It's funny how even the smallest decision can turn everything upside down. Well, maybe funny isn't the right word. People actually got hurt. And honestly, this whole mess was partly my fault too.
Chapter 5. Caroline. Jack and I bought 2 bottles of red wine, 50 euros worth of scratch cards, and a lottery ticket with 6 surprisingly lucky numbers printed on it. This was the first and, let's be honest, most probably the last time in my life I managed to pick a set of numbers that could later be exchanged for 1 million euros. The draw results became available online at 9:10 p.m. Instead of joining a fairly big group of young ladies on the dance floor, making weird moves and screaming my lungs out to put a ring on it, out of sheer curiosity, I chose to check the numbers. I couldn't believe my eyes. They won. I just made them 1 million euros. People around me must have wondered what had happened because I squealed so loudly as if someone stepped on my foot with a shoe heel. The minute I found out, I hurried over to save the bride from the wiggling crowd and pulled her aside to deliver the good news. Her reaction wasn't quite what I expected, but she did look excited, at least for a little while. She gasped and then hugged me so tightly that I almost ran out of breath. But something obviously bothered her. I mean, something was clearly off. She also asked me not to mention anything to Harrison, which I found a little weird, but maybe she wanted to tell him herself. Maybe it's just my imagination, as I don't know Paulina's family that well, but from what I've heard, her dad is pretty rich with his company and all. Paulina's parents are quite old, so she might be expecting a sizable inheritance sooner rather than later. Just saying, not that I want anything to happen to them. When you come from money, money is never such a big deal for you. When you're poor, it's the most important thing in the world. Unlike Paulina, I could definitely use that kind of money. Jack and I would pay off our mortgage, buy a bigger apartment, and a new car, or even two. I have always dreamed of a pearl white BMW convertible. Not very practical, considering that summer in Poland lasts only 3 months, but who cares if you've got two cars at your disposal? After buying all of that, I might still have enough money to get married in the south of France as I've always dreamed, and throw a wedding party on a beach or maybe even in a castle. Jack proposed to me last month, but we decided to put off the wedding for another 2 or 3 years and focus on remodeling the apartment for now. Honestly, I'm not surprised that Harrison was mad about the situation, but I also don't think it was the most reasonable thing to do. I saw how happy he was earlier, running around telling people that he was going to quit his job. It felt like an enormous weight had been lifted off his shoulders. That was the exact reaction I expected from Paulina. Sometime before midnight, when the staff was wheeling in a beautiful pink 3-tier wedding cake onto the empty dance floor, the guests were sitting at their tables at that time. Harrison rushed down the stairs into the ballroom, clutching an almost empty bottle of whiskey in one hand and shouting that somebody had stolen his lottery ticket. He went to his parents and his in-laws first and assured them that he loved them and would never, in a million years, suspect any of them. Then he stared at some guys for a while, came closer and hugged them, saying they were his best friends and that he trusted them with his life. Harrison also mentioned something about Amsterdam, but he'd never forget what they did or something like that. Everyone fell silent, waiting to see Harrison's next move. The staff seemed confused, unsure whether to cut the cake or wait for Harrison to sober up a little. All eyes were on Harrison, but none of the guests dared to move, not to draw attention to themselves. People seemed curious about how the situation was going to pan out. Harrison swayed across the dance floor, holding his whiskey bottle and staring at people with his bloodshot eyes, when he finally spotted his next prey. The second he saw Conor, he started yelling with his slurred, drunk voice. "You! I know you! You're the Irish guy!" And then he was trying to unsuccessfully mimic Conor's accent. He said something like, "Oi, Conor, I know what you did. I'm gonna smash your head, you little bastard." I know it may sound funny now, but no one laughed at the time. Harrison took another swig of his whiskey. Two of his friends quickened their pace as they walked toward him, but he just gestured for them to stop. Conor looked at Harrison pitifully, said he had no idea what Harrison was talking about, then turned and started walking toward the exit. Harrison, clearly offended, yanked the Irish guy by the back of his shirt, and in a matter of seconds, what had been a bottle was now 1,000 shattered pieces scattered across the floor and on Conor's head. I, as well as a few other women, screamed in fright, and then quickly turned my head away as I couldn't stand the sight of blood running down Conor's head. Then Jack, without saying anything, rushed toward Harrison and Conor. Before my fiancé managed to grab any of them, two of the groom's friends tried to separate the guys, struggling to do so as Conor appeared to be not only tall, but also pretty strong. He punched the groom in the face so many times that Harrison almost passed out. At least, that's what I heard from the man beside me. Finally, they managed to separate them so the guys could drag Harrison outside. He kept mumbling that he is a lawyer and that Conor is a dead man. I've been to lots of weddings, but this was too much. After what I saw that night, I am certain there'll be no alcohol at my wedding. I don't need that kind of drama. Thank you very much. Thankfully, Paulina wasn't inside the ballroom to witness any of that. She arrived right after the incident. Harrison had already been brought outside. Conor was sitting in the middle of the ballroom, covered in blood, and the guests just stood there dumbfounded. Paulina was clearly horrified, but she kept her composure, and together with Hannah, she took Conor somewhere outside, probably to the hospital or something. One of the women from the staff came up to the band's lead singer, and so, in less than 5 minutes, the band resumed playing like nothing happened. Then the lady joined the other one, and they both started cutting and handing out small pieces of the cake to the guests, who slowly took their seats and, hesitant at first, resumed eating and talking. So everything pretty much went back to normal. The cake was actually very tasty. Not too sweet.
Chapter 6. Harrison. Perhaps I overreacted a little. But in my defense, I was completely drunk. It was my wedding, so I had every right to get wasted and pissed at people who aimed to ruin my day. My life, even. Yes, I did smash an expensive bottle of Scottish whiskey against the Irish guy's fucking head, and I would do it again, because the guy is an asshole. Normally, I'm a friendly and harmless guy. Everyone would confirm that. But not when I lose a shitload of money. I am not. You see, I like money, but not for the reason most people do. I don't really care about having a fucking Porsche in my garage, a huge house with a pool, or any of that shit. I want enough zeros in my bank account so everyone will leave me the fuck alone and just let me be. Especially my boss. And any of my potential future bosses, too. Ever since high school, I thought I'd become a judge. I don't know whether it was TV that influenced my decision or whether I just had it in me from the day I was born. But none of the family members I knew has ever graduated from law school. I was the first to do it. Studies were a real grind, and pulling an all-nighter before the exam wasn't anything unusual. On top of that, writing a 55-page thesis on criminal law, which, by the way, was pure gibberish no sane person would ever want to read, was a nightmare and a complete waste of my time. But every time I was ready to give up, I told myself to suck it up and suffer through a few more years till I'd finally start making good money. That one day, I'll be thanking the younger me for making this sacrifice. Bullshit. After getting my master's degree, I applied for judicial clerkship and didn't pass the interviews. Then I waited a few months only to get rejected again and again, because some of these assholes got in thanks to their family connections. In that exact moment, I decided to ditch this path for good and start making money a different way. I became a corporate lawyer. I used to like my job, but now I'm mostly frustrated, tired, or bored. The days of interesting and challenging are long gone. Not to mention the raise. That one hasn't happened for quite a while now. And no, switching companies doesn't help. So I took matters into my own hands. 2 of my friends and I got into playing poker a while ago. And, as I quickly found out, I was pretty good at it. The first time I made any money from it, I won my monthly salary in a few hours. It suddenly hit me. That job was going nowhere. So I thought, fuck it. I might as well go all in and chase the life I actually want. Not to mention, there were poker tournaments held around the world that could make me a millionaire. Playing poker allowed me to feel excitement and purpose I haven't felt for years. It meant that I didn't have to work for these or any other assholes for the rest of my life. I could be the master of my own fate. And time. But my wife, Paulina, thinks that I'm addicted. Like some kind of junkie. I wish she understood I also do it for her. For our future. She's happy at her job. Doing her little projects. Almost never stressed out. Hardly ever complaining. And hardly ever having to deal with stupid people like I do. but she's not a saint. She's the reason I attacked the Irish guy in the first place. The night we met Conor for the first time, I noticed that my wife enjoyed spending time with the new guy a little too much. She constantly smiled at him and laughed at everything he said. So much so that they ended up making out somewhere in the corner of the club. I know because I saw them, but they were so focused on each other that they failed to notice me walking by. It was just a few weeks before the wedding, so I didn't feel like bringing it up. I love her, and it wouldn't change anything between us anyway. I was just waiting for my wife to confess, but she never did. She insisted on starting fresh and going into this marriage with a clean slate, to forget anything that happened before our wedding day. I would have nothing against it, except that she and Conor kept texting each other days after that night. Anyway, fuck that lottery ticket and fuck the Irish guy. Everyone thinks I'm the bad guy, but the truth is that I'm the victim here.
Chapter 7. Conor. I left the party pissed off. First off, there was this older guy who kept on flirting with Hannah. His breath stunk of vodka even before the staff put it on the tables. That was Paulina's creepy uncle, as I later found out. Every family has their own creepy uncle, apparently. I'm not an impulsive or overly jealous person, so I ignored him when he kept on complimenting Hannah's appearance or asking her to dance with him at least a dozen times. Even though she often refused and didn't seem to be comfortable with the nagging attention this guy gave her, he wasn't ready to give up. He crossed the line when he touched Hannah's ass after she finally agreed to dance with him. I noticed it because I paid close attention to his every move whenever he was near her. I don't think it was an accident. He deliberately grabbed my girlfriend's butt and didn't feel like he had done anything wrong. Hannah broke free from his embrace as I came up to him and told him a thing or two. I admit that punching him did cross my mind, but thinking about doing something and actually doing it are two entirely different things. The situation did make me frustrated, but it wasn't difficult to keep my temper in check. I am able to control myself. Besides, it was Hannah's friend's wedding, so I didn't want her to be ashamed of me. Then, 3 already slightly drunk guys, most probably around 16 if not less, kept calling me McGregor, asking for an autograph, or bragging about what they'd do to me in the octagon. I usually don't mind being compared to one of the greatest UFC fighters of our time. I was born in Dublin too, so to foreigners I may sound exactly like him. Now, my accent's not as thick as it used to be though. I'm an English teacher, and I've learned to adjust my speaking so my less advanced students can understand me as well. And like McGregor, I did actually take martial arts classes for a while. Except I've never fought competitively, and I'm no celebrity. The 3 guys were already somewhat annoying, but also harmless at the same time. At that point, I'd already drunk a few bottles of beer, but was still far from feeling lightheaded or sick. One time, I even started laughing at their clumsy attempts at shadowboxing near the staircase. They were all so focused on beating the shit out of their invisible opponents that it looked truly hilarious. One of the few things that gets to me is when someone is mocking my accent. I don't know why, but it gets on my nerves pretty quickly. The guys mocked me a few times, repeating my words in a way that made me think they sounded like I do. But again, I just told them to leave me alone, go bother someone else. With every hour, I felt less and less excited about the party. I could usually be found sitting at the table with a beer bottle, though I didn't know almost anybody there. And not that many people spoke English, to be honest. I didn't want Hannah to worry and suggest that we leave earlier and go upstairs to our hotel room because I knew how much she wanted to stay. After she moved to Dublin, she didn't get to see her Polish friends as often, so this was a perfect opportunity to hang out with all of them in one place. Finally, there was one guy who really made me lose it. Ironically, it was one of the 2 most important people at this wedding. I couldn't control myself any longer. I really tried to be invisible. I was determined not to make a big deal of what was happening to me that night, but bottling it all up only made things worse. I punched Harrison a few times and instantly knew what I had done was wrong. But what he did was way worse. I still think he deserved every one of these punches, although I'm not particularly proud of myself. Maybe a little. Taking me for a thief and making a scene in front of at least 50 people, especially at his own wedding, surrounded by friends and family, was way over the line. I've never stolen a thing in my entire life. I've never done anything illegal. Heck, I've never even gotten a speeding ticket. I've worked hard for every penny I earned, and I won't let anyone smear my name. Good thing Harrison didn't know about Paulina and me, or one of us could really end up in the hospital. I wish I had met Paulina sooner. She's so mature and funny at the same time. But sometimes we happen to meet certain people when it's too late. Paulina is married now, and I have to respect her decision. Hannah is great, too. I mean, she's beautiful and smart, little unstable at times. But to be honest, I wasn't looking for a long-term relationship with her. I'd definitely consider one, though, if I were with Paulina. When I woke up the day after the wedding, Hannah had already left. She also left me a text message saying that she was going to take all her things from my apartment and move countries, so I shouldn't bother trying to reach out to her.
Chapter 8. Caroline. Perhaps I shouldn't have brought up the lottery at the wedding reception. Who would have expected things to play out the way they did? I have to admit that I didn't check the numbers that night because I was desperate to be the first to deliver good news to the newlyweds. The truth was that the ticket was in my purse the whole time. Well, not the lottery ticket. I had no idea who, if anyone, stole Paulina and Harrison's ticket. It was Jack's idea that we buy 2 identical lottery tickets so that if they won, we would win as well. I have to give it to my fiancé. It turned out to be the best idea he's ever had. We became millionaires overnight, and so did Paulina and Harrison. It was impossible to keep such good news a secret, so I told Paulina about it as soon as I found out. I didn't tell her about us winning the money, though. I thought it would be best to keep it between Jack and me for the time being. After Conor and Harrison had gotten into a fight, Jack was seriously considering splitting the prize between the 4 of us. He wanted to split our money. No way were they going to get half of what we won. I mean, I really like them. Paulina and Jack are good friends, but Paulina is well off. She doesn't need our help. My family, sadly, isn't as wealthy as hers. On the contrary, my parents are decent, hardworking people, but life wasn't easy on them. So I never had it all handed to me on a silver platter. That kind of money is life-changing for us, but I'm also going to set some aside for my parents. I don't want my mom to stress about paying the bills while I'll be shopping for bathroom tiles for my new house. It is a lot of money, but I had to remind Jack that there are more important people in his life than Paulina and Harrison. I really felt for them, but at the same time, it wasn't my fault they lost the ticket. I kept mine well hidden.
Chapter 9. Paulina. We didn't exactly lose the lottery ticket, nor was it stolen. When Caroline told me that we won, I panicked and went straight upstairs to the suite. Harrison's parents put all the wedding gifts there, and I hadn't exactly had the time to check what we got yet. Thankfully, all the envelopes were stored in one cardboard box, so I started rummaging in it, hoping to find Caroline and Jack's envelope in less than a few minutes. I went through every single envelope, every 35 of them, and didn't find it. Then Harrison startled me by coming over to say that my mom was looking for me. They wanted to take some pictures. Harrison, already a little tipsy and sweaty, started kissing me, but I pushed him gently and said that it wasn't the best time to make out. For a second, I thought he would just pass out on our bed and wouldn't leave the room. That could be the end of my search. It took him a while, but when he finally agreed to stop undressing me and went back to our guests, I resumed looking for the envelope among the flower bouquets and wine bottles lying on the floor. My attention was caught by 2 bottles of wine and a red fabric bag in a wooden basket in the corner. It turned out to be Caroline and Jack's gift. I took the lottery ticket out, and then heard someone knocking, and then immediately entering the room that I didn't even manage to let out a single word of my mouth. My heart stopped. It wasn't Harrison, though. It was Hannah. She saw me holding up the corner of a mattress and a piece of paper falling off my hand. When she saw the lottery ticket on the floor, she became very suspicious. I didn't want to play dumb, so I told her what I was doing. Hannah still failed to get her head around the reason behind my actions, but she promised not to tell anyone, especially Harrison. The fact that Hannah caught me hiding the ticket wasn't ideal, but at the same time, I was glad it wasn't Harrison. She suggested I should find a different spot to hide the ticket, because if Harrison found out that the ticket was lost, he would comb through every inch of that room. She was right, so I had to think of somewhere else to hide it. I did have a secret pocket in my wedding dress, but the ticket could easily fall out during dancing, jumping, or being tossed around by the male guests, as I had already done that at least 2 times. Finally, I suggested that I would hide the ticket in Hannah's room, as there was a small safe in the closet. I came up with the numbers for the code, which Hannah saved in her phone in case I forgot them. I usually don't keep secrets from my husband, but this time was different. Because of his gambling problem, I was afraid that he might spend some or even all of that money very irresponsibly. I am the kind of person who likes stability, and having a safety net of 1 million euros would definitely provide just that. I was afraid that he'd quit his job, spend the money in a casino or who knows where, believing he would be able to double or triple the sum, and then get seriously depressed or even suicidal, as some people would be, beating himself up for what he did. I really wanted to avoid any of it. It was only a matter of time before Harrison found out about the ticket. I just hoped it wouldn't be at our wedding, or in the days that followed. He was over the moon when he found out that we won. The second Jack told him about it, he rushed upstairs and began searching for it. He didn't find it because I had already hidden it in Hannah's room. It was heartbreaking to learn that he completely ruined the mood of our wedding reception and kept accusing our guests of stealing from us. I was so embarrassed. But I couldn't just tell him that I hid the ticket from him after what he did. It would make everything worse. As if things weren't bad enough already. I know why he got so angry. I know that most days he's tired and unhappy, not sure what to do with his life. I even tried to convince Dad to lend Harrison some money to open his own business so he doesn't have to waste his energy working on something he doesn't feel like doing. The thing is that Harrison doesn't know what he wants. I slowly come to realize that he doesn't want to do anything, really. Besides, so far, every idea my husband had was instantly rejected by my father after a series of difficult questions about things like marketing, distribution, competition research, or demand. My dad is very particular and doesn't respond well to vague ideas and business plans. I got the impression that Harrison wasn't even trying to impress him. I love Harrison and consider myself his biggest cheerleader, but he seems a bit lost lately. The possibility of winning big money, quitting his job, and being free for the rest of his life is one of the few things that keeps his hopes up these days. I want him to be happy, I really do. But I also think he's been having a toxic relationship with money for a while now. And I wasn't ready to tell Harrison the truth just yet. I just wanted to protect him.
Chapter 10. Hannah. I did what in my mind was right. I told Harrison that Paulina hid the winning lottery ticket from him. Yes, I did swear I wouldn't tell anyone. But that was when I considered Paulina to be my close friend. And I really did mean to keep the secret because it was never my intention to be meddling in their relationship. Their relationship, their problems. But it turned out it wasn't just their problem. Things started to get more personal when Harrison attacked Conor. Forgiving Harrison was an almost impossible task. But with time, I think I'm able to move past it. I know he was wasted and angry, and that's always a recipe for disaster. Don't throw stones if you live in a glass house, or something like that. What I failed to understand was that seeing all of this, Paulina didn't do a single thing. She didn't tell Harrison the truth, nor did she admit her lie led Conor to being seriously hurt and humiliated in front of guests. That was something I just couldn't sit by and watch. The next day, when Harrison seemed to be almost sober, I came to him and told him the truth and assured him that no one had stolen the ticket from him, including Conor. He didn't seem to get it at first, but after last night, his brain clearly wasn't functioning at usual pace. He just nodded and headed towards the table where breakfast was being served. For a moment, I wondered whether he processed the information I just gave him or just pretended to listen to me so I'd leave him alone and let him eat his scrambled eggs. After a while, he walked up to Paulina, but before saying anything to her, he decided to turn around and come up to me instead. He gently grabbed my arm and took me to the garden where no one could hear us. His words made me nauseous. Even though we were outside, all I could think about was that I needed air. Hiding a lottery ticket from a husband is one thing, but kissing your best friend's boyfriend and not owning up to it is a whole other thing. Harrison saw some of Conor's text messages on Paulina's phone, which evidently meant it wasn't a one-time thing. That's why Harrison was so angry. It wasn't about that stupid ticket, it was about his wife. I didn't need any more proof, so I packed my things while Conor was still asleep and bought the first available flight to Dublin. I wanted to clear the apartment of my things and never see him again. I knew I couldn't stand Conor explaining himself. I didn't have the time or energy for that bullshit.
Chapter 11. Harrison. Paulina has made me look like a fool. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have made a scene in front of family and friends. Marriage is built on trust, and ours seems to be built on secrets from the very first day. So much for a clean slate. Paulina thinks I am the problem. During my bachelor's, we went to the casino, but I didn't buy as many chips as I wanted to due to the fact that my wife forced me to leave most of my money at home. Thankfully, 2 of my very best friends agreed to lend me 10,000 euros, which I managed to turn into 30,000 in one night. I was so excited that I hurried to the local jewelry shop the next day to buy Paulina a nice necklace with some of the money, to show her that I cared about her, and that I really could provide for us. And also to prove a point. I was going to give it to her after the wedding. When Conor left the room for breakfast, I took the lottery ticket from the safe using the numbers Hannah had given me. I can finally quit this life-sucking job and start to live my life the way I want. Paulina's father also thinks I'm the problem. He brags about how smart he is and how he always knew what he wanted, and that I am too indecisive. Some people are just too lazy to get what they want, he said. I didn't give a single fuck about his money. I bought a plane ticket just like Hannah did, dressed in my stinky wedding suit, with only a phone and a wallet in my pocket. I decided to travel around Europe for a week or two to gather my thoughts. Or maybe longer. Who knows? I'm a millionaire now, so why the hell not? I'm going to give Paulina some space to rethink her decisions as well. I hope she realizes I'm not to be treated like a child. I need some alone time. I'm tired of all these people. I want it out. When I saw Paulina and Conor kissing the night we went to a club a few weeks ago, I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want Paulina or Hannah to know what I saw, With a wedding around the corner, I convinced myself that it was just a one-time thing. Nothing serious. If only your father knew that you're not the perfect daughter he so wholeheartedly believes you to be. He'd be devastated. When it comes to the 1 million euros we won, I am not going to share with anyone. The coupon was bought before the wedding, so technically, Paulina, even though legally now my wife, has no rights to the money. Yeah, I know some legal bullshit. It's Family Law 101. I have no intention to give her anything. At least for now. Let her feel what it's like to be on the outside for once.
Chapter 12. Paulina. All he left was a golden necklace and a note. A gift from Amsterdam. Beautiful wedding, honey. Well done. Ask Conor if he wants to go on a honeymoon with us. And don't forget to cash that lottery ticket, assuming you didn't lose it again. With love, Harrison. Harrison knew. He knew everything. The first time I met Conor, I immediately felt a connection. I don't think I've ever met such an interesting person or clicked with anyone so quickly. Not even Harrison. I didn't want any of it to happen. I promised myself I'd forget about Conor after we kissed. But when he flew back to Ireland, I just couldn't stop thinking about him. Yes, we did talk over the phone a few times and texted each other every now and then. But after a while, I decided to end this nonsense. 2 days ago, I wrote to Conor that we shouldn't do that any longer. I was about to get married to a great guy. A great guy who ended up ruining my wedding. A great guy who stole 1 million euros from me. A great guy who's just overwhelmed and lost and has no idea what he's doing.
Chapter 13. Jack. Harrison is gone, Hannah is gone, Caroline is gone, and now my money is gone too. Hannah was the only person I told about our second lottery ticket. I didn't see any harm in that. She's my friend. Besides, I felt like I needed to tell someone that day or else I would have exploded. Caroline kept our ticket in her purse. Probably not the smartest idea, but we bought it on the day of the wedding and we really didn't have time to drive home and put it somewhere safer. She became obsessed with her purse after she learned we had won. But for some reason, the next morning, she wasn't as careful as the day before, and so Hannah somehow managed to take it out of her purse when we weren't watching. Take it out. Who am I kidding? She stole it. My friend stole our money. I tried to contact her, but she didn't pick up the phone. The only thing I got was a short text message. I'm sorry, it wasn't supposed to be like that. I'm in a very difficult situation right now. I really need it. I'll just take like a 50 or 100,000 and transfer you the rest. I promise. Caroline doesn't believe Hannah is going to give any of it back. She called me a pathetic loser for not keeping my mouth shut. She's never called me that. She doesn't want to have anything to do with me unless I get the money back. She showed her true colors. I don't want to be with a person like that, so I broke off the engagement. I know making such an important decision on the spot isn't always smart, but right now, I believe I made the right choice. I'm almost certain Hannah is going to transfer my money back. I truly want to believe she is not a traitor and a thief. I'm not sure what I'll do with that amount of cash yet. I'm a simple man. But one thing I know for sure, I am never buying anyone a lottery ticket as a gift, ever again.